Hello and good evening. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Professor Hannah Khan, and I will be facilitating this workshop on springing into paragraph formation. So currently it is April when we're recording this session, and we are seeing the flowers and the plants just blooming and blossoming outside. And surprisingly enough, a lot of parallels exist in plants and vegetation and flowers blooming and blossoming. There's a lot of parallels in writing and paragraph formation specifically. So I'm really excited to jump into that this evening and talk through how we can effectively begin, build, and conclude paragraphs. Because paragraphs, as we know, are a major component of developing an effective written work, whether it's a 5 paragraph essay, whether it's a 5 page paper or a 20 page paper. It's all of those writing exercises are built of paragraphs. So let's start with a word of prayer and then we'll jump in. Heavenly Father God, I thank you for this opportunity to learn together tonight about writing. I thank you, Lord God, for the gift of writing, the gift of language, and I pray, Lord, that we would use these gifts to honor and glorify you. I ask that you would bless our time, bless our conversation, and we give all things to you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so to begin our workshop tonight, we are going to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. So we are going to think through and complete and finish this sentence. Academic college level writing is blank. What are some of the first words that come to mind when you read that sentence?
Hmm. Challenging.
Yes.
Um, it's a discovery.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, let's see. It's fulfilling.
Mhm.
Um, it really searches the depths of your heart. Your the things that academic level writing is hmm, requires deep searching.
Does definitely. Well, thank you for sharing, Charlotte. Those are all excellent words. It's challenging, it's a discovery. It requires a lot of the writer. I think there's unfortunately some misconceptions that writing is very external, like, oh, I just have to gather these sources and gather this information and present this information. But the reality is we as individual writers actually bring so much of our own preconceptions, our previous knowledge, our previous experiences, all of that is going to influence our understanding of the given topic at hand. And so, those were excellent descriptions. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
So, tonight in our workshop, our goals by the end of this workshop, you will better understand how to write clear topic sentences. So, topic sentences are the first sentences that begin our body paragraphs. And so, body paragraphs are any paragraph that is not the introduction or the conclusion. And so, we'll talk more about paper structure throughout the workshop tonight. But foundationally, it's really important that we understand that essays begin with an introduction, they're followed by a series of body paragraphs, and then they end with a conclusion. The whole essay or paper ends with a conclusion. And our topic sentences is so a topic sentence is the first sentence of each and every body paragraph. So you will have several topic sentences over the course of your papers. Throughout this workshop, we will also work on how can we effectively develop ideas with academic support. So what does it look like to not just gather up research and staple it into our paper, but to effectively implement and use our research to prove our ideas and to integrate our research and our arguments well. Then we're also going to talk about maintaining focus within a paragraph. So we don't want to just include information that's somewhat related to our topic. We want to really focus on, okay, what did I set out to do in this paragraph and how can I bring that to completion? And then we're also going to talk about concluding our paragraphs effectively. We don't want to just say what we want to say and then leave. We want to make sure that the reader understands, okay, where are we coming from and where are we going next? So we're going to start off pretty foundational with this workshop. What is a paragraph? So a paragraph is a group of four or more sentences that and it focuses on explaining and supporting one main idea. So it's a group of four or more sentences that focuses on explaining and supporting one main idea. It's developed with evidence and explanation. So we don't want to just be stating our opinion. We want to be providing evidence and explanation. The one exception to this would be perhaps if you were assigned a reflection or a journal entry prompt and it was just a reflection and you didn't have to include outside sources. But for most academic formal writing, you are going to be developing your paragraphs with evidence and explanation. And actually, truly, even if you are doing a reflection, you still want to provide evidence and explanation. So even if it's a personal example from your own life, you're still providing an explanation and evidence of how you're supporting the claim that you set out to prove in your topic sentence. We're going to make sure that we're writing in a clear and academic tone. So we want to make sure that we are maintaining style that is consistent with formality, with formal academic conventions, that we're avoiding slang or avoiding contractions. We're using language and vocabulary that is academic in nature. And then the first line in each and every paragraph should be indented a half inch in MLA to distinguish and differentiate the paragraphs from another paragraph. So foundationally, that is what a paragraph is. Also, if there's any questions at any point in the workshop, feel free to jump in and let me know.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you said that it's the topic sentence is the first
Mhm.
sentence, but sometimes when I'm reading like my resource, I'll be looking, they'll have it somewhere else. Um, so I was curious about that.
Yes, that is a great point. So there are times, especially in published articles and journals, where the main idea of the source perhaps is embedded later in the paragraph. And that is a viable option, especially for researchers and academics. Generally, it's a best practice when learning how to write paragraphs to begin with our main idea so that it's really clear what the main idea is and how we're building on it. But for those who are writing like yourself at the graduate level or post-grad, doctoral level, then there is a lot more flexibility because at that point, you're so skilled in the conventions of research and writing that you can embed your topic sentence a little bit farther, as long as, of course, we still want everything in the paragraph serving and supporting that topic sentence, that main idea. But great question and observation. So yes, that is an option,
Yeah.
but at the undergraduate level, we encourage students to begin paragraphs with the topic
Mm.
sentence.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So when we think about the parts of a paragraph, and if we're thinking about our plant comparisons, given the theme of the workshop, if we think about the topic sentence as the seed, we can think about the support and the evidence as the germination of that seed. So we state our main idea, but then we also want that to germinate, to expand, to take root in our support. And we don't want to just leave it germinating. We want there to actually be growth and development by explaining how our evidence supports our main point. And then we also want to conclude our paragraphs with an effective summary sentence, a concluding statement that wraps up the paragraph effectively, and then also transitions to our next point. And that's kind of like the bloom, the blossom of a flower. So it really all works together and creates a beautiful thing to look at. So um, that is how we'll be thinking through the parts of the paragraph, and it can just be helpful to note the relationship between these different components. Now, you may be asking yourself, why do paragraphs matter in the first place? Can't I just write out my ideas, answer the prompt, and be done for the day? Well, we really want to think about paragraphs serving as foundational building bricks. So, like a building needs bricks and needs bricks to be positioned effectively and in a way that is supporting the whole of the structure, it's the same way that paragraphs need to be supportive, properly fashioned, and placed correctly to really effectively build your argument and build your case in your paper. So the purpose of paragraphs is to support the thesis statement. So we'll be talking a little bit more about the thesis statement over the course of our workshop, but the thesis is the main argument of the entire paper. So the thesis statement is what is being proved and discussed and elaborated on throughout the entirety of the whole paper. It is the thread that keeps everything together. It is the foundation. And so, something that's helpful is we can almost think about topic sentences as miniature thesis statements because the thesis statement is the main statement for the entire paper, but then each topic sentence supports and explains an aspect of the thesis. But I might be getting a little ahead of myself. I got to get back to the purpose of paragraphs. Paragraphs also help to organize our ideas. They organize our argument, and so we're not just saying, "Oh, this point, and this is also why I think this or believe this." It helps us to really organize our ideas in an effective way, so that we are presenting our information in an organized manner that our reader can follow. So we know what we're saying, but we want to make sure that the reader also understands what it is we're arguing or communicating. Paragraphs also enable us to present research and support. So, as we've been talking about, we want to add credibility to what it is we're saying. And so, we want to be able to cite researchers and scholars and experts in the field to provide credibility, to provide support for the arguments that we're making. Paragraphs also explain how the above evidence proves the main idea. So we never want to just assume that the research or an expert quotation just speaks for itself, because someone could read that and maybe not exactly understand how it is you're using it. Are you using it to build your case? Are you using it to present a counter argument in which you show the lack of logic in an argument? We want to know how it is you're using that evidence to support your main idea. So as we talked about a little bit at the beginning of this slide, if we want to think about the thesis as the entire house, the entire building, the paragraphs are the bricks that build, support, and expound on that thesis. If the bricks don't fit, then the house is unstable. It really creates instability throughout the entirety of your paper because if the reader can't follow the paragraphs, that's going to make for a really difficult experience of understanding what it is you're arguing. So, for all these reasons and more, this is why paragraphs matter. Any questions at this point?
I think I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
I love the
Charlotte.
pictures. So this is
Yes, excellent. Wonderful. Welcome, Tara. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you. I'm kind of multitasking here, so I may be on and off camera if that's okay.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Happy that you're here. Okay, so we've talked about how paragraphs, particularly body paragraphs, support and prove the thesis statement. And so we should probably take a moment to just really dive deep into what is a thesis statement. So the thesis statement is the main argument, the claim of your essay. It's typically one sentence in length, though sometimes for graduate papers, it can be longer, but it's typically one sentence in length and presents your topic, your claim, and the supporting evidence to prove that claim. So if we look at this example thesis statement, our topic is in bold. So I'll read through the whole sentence and then we'll break down the components. Higher education is a worthwhile investment because earning a college degree increases career opportunities, improves critical thinking skills, and promotes long-term financial stability. So if we break down those components, we know what the topic is. So the topic is in bold, higher education. Okay, we know what it is this paper is going to be focusing on.
Mm.
What is this author saying about or arguing about higher education? Well, they're arguing that higher education is a worthwhile investment. And what is the supporting evidence? Because earning a college degree increases career opportunities, improves critical thinking skills, and promotes long-term financial stability. So we know from this thesis statement the direction and trajectory of this paper. We know that if this is a shorter 5 paragraph essay, that the first body paragraph will be talking about the increased career opportunities as a result of obtaining a college degree. We know that the second body paragraph would then talk about how higher education improves critical thinking skills. And then finally, the third body paragraph would talk about how higher education promotes long-term financial stability. Now, it's important to note, and we'll talk about this throughout the evening, that depending on the required length of your paper, you may have more, and actually likely will have more than one body paragraph per piece of supporting evidence. So, in a 5 paragraph essay, it would follow the structure that we just talked through. But if you're writing a 10-page essay, well, you're going to need more than 5 paragraphs. And so that would be why you would possibly break each point into multiple body paragraphs, where you would break down different aspects and explain research even more in depth and exploring each one of these pieces of evidence in a more expansive way. And again, that's just going to depend on the word count, the page count requirement for your paper. So, a few ways that we can think of the thesis statement. We can think of the thesis statement as the backbone of the essay. It provides support, it provides structure, it provides a sense of stability to the whole of the body. So, the backbone provides support to the body, and the thesis statement provides support and structure to a paper or an essay. The thesis statement also serves as a blueprint. It provides direction of where the argument is going and how it's being developed, and how all of the various components fit together to form a unified whole. And then finally, my personal favorite analogy is that the thesis statement is like a roadmap. So if we'll look at this picture here, when we're traveling on a road trip or any type of journey or travel, we want to know where we're going. And so the thesis statement provides a nice overview of where we're going throughout our journey. And something that I really love about this picture is we can think of each body paragraph as a specific destination. or one of these push pins. So in the thesis statement, we get the overview of what the argument will entail. And then in each body paragraph, we have the opportunity to dig deep into that particular topic at that particular location to really understand, okay, how does this point support the overall argument? How does this second point support the overall argument? And that is how the thesis statement provides direction and serves as a roadmap for the paper. So, how our body paragraphs support the thesis? Each body paragraph should focus on one part of the thesis. So, we don't need to prove all parts of the thesis in one paragraph. We really don't want to do that because that would be entirely too much content for the scope of one paragraph. So, we really just want to focus on one part, and it directly supports the overall argument. So, each and every body paragraph should focus on one part of the thesis while also directly supporting the overall argument. So, if we return back to the previous thesis example, we talked about this, but it's helpful to just see the visual. So, we know that based on the way the support is ordered in this thesis statement, we know the order that the body paragraphs will follow in the paper. So we want to make sure that whenever we're ordering our thesis statements, writing them out, choosing the order, that whatever piece of evidence comes first is the piece of evidence we plan to cover first in our paper. So, for example, we know that so higher education increases career opportunities is going to be covered in paragraph 1 because it's listed first. And then the second point will be in paragraph 2, and the third point will be in paragraph 3. So if we write our thesis statement and we realize, oh, actually, point 3 should really come before point 2, we have the opportunity to switch those before we've written the paper. Of course, after we've written the paper, we can also, during revisions, we have the opportunity to reorder paragraphs as needed. But it's nice to be able to just plan out and map out where the paper is going when we draft our thesis statement. Any other questions so far about paragraph formation and paragraphs and the purpose of paragraphs?
I noticed that well, my question is when you make that thesis, there's like key verbs that are like increases, improves, promotes. Are are there like specific words in that thesis that you're going to concentrate on in developing your thoughts? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, that's an excellent question. Yes. So the verbs that we use in our thesis statement are really crucial to what it is we're arguing. Because if we're using the word increases, we need to be able to prove that increase. So, when we talk about improving critical thinking skills, we need to have the data and the evidence that shows, okay, how does earning a college degree tangibly improve those critical thinking skills? And then same thing with the third point. It promotes, I mean, and I think that's also why that this verb is really intentional, promotes long-term stability. It doesn't guarantee it. So people can earn a college degree and encounter financial difficulties in their life. It doesn't ensure or guarantee, but it does promote long-term financial stability. So it is really important that we're very intentional about the verbs that we choose in our thesis because yes, that can change the entire trajectory of our paper depending on the verbs. And we need to be able to prove whatever we're claiming as well, which is really important.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Excellent question. Any other questions at this time? Okay, well, we can keep on rolling into our practice activity. So if we have this example thesis, I'm going to ask that we determine what each body paragraph should cover. So if our example thesis is online learning is a valuable education option for adults because it offers flexibility, accessibility, and cost savings, what would each body paragraph cover? What do you think?
Would it be like the career opportunities, the critical thinking, and then the financial stability that we talked about earlier?
So it would be similar in terms of the order that those pieces of supporting evidence are covered in the paper, but for this activity specifically, we're looking at the this particular thesis, and so based on the evidence provided in this thesis, what should each body paragraph cover?
Well, it's specifically online learning.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, so slightly different topics, slightly different claim, and different pieces of evidence. So in body paragraph one, so following the introduction, following the presentation of the thesis statement, what evidence would be covered in that first body paragraph?
Well, flexibility, accessibility, and cost savings, you're going to have to prove these, this.
Hmm.
Why is it flexible? Why is it accessible? And what are the cost savings?
Hmm. Yes. But then so those are all three pieces of supporting evidence. So in the first body paragraph, the writer should just cover how online learning offers flexibility
Oh, okay.
and how that's beneficial specifically to the adult learner. And then
Mm.
what would the second body paragraph likely cover, or what should it cover? So if we address flexibility in that first body paragraph,
We're
then
going to
based
talk
on the
accessibility.
yes, yes, excellent. So if we're thinking then we want to look at how online learning offers accessibility and why that makes online learning a valuable education option. And then what would the third body paragraph cover?
Well, what one would be, how is it a cost savings?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. So in what ways does online learning offer cost savings? Excellent. Very good. Okay, so as we've been talking, topic sentences should always directly support our thesis because topic sentences build, support, and expand on the points in the thesis.
Okay.
So the thesis directs the trajectory of the paper, and therefore the body paragraphs should follow. If our body paragraphs don't follow, then we have a problem with the organization of the paper. So we also want to make sure that we're using similar language and ideas. I think sometimes we writers can feel like, oh, well, I already said that in my thesis, so I shouldn't say it again later on. Now, of course, we don't want to just cut and paste our thesis statement for our topic sentence. That wouldn't work. But we want to be using similar terminology, similar language, so that it's really clear exactly how our topic sentences and then our whole body paragraphs support and connect to the thesis. So if we once again look at the first thesis that we talked about, our body paragraph, our topic sentence for body paragraph number 3 could be one major benefit of earning a college degree is its positive impact on long-term financial stability. So we're using very similar language and terminology, earning a college degree, long-term financial stability. That shows the reader, oh, okay, this third point of the thesis is being explained and proven in this particular paragraph. So we want to make it easy for our reader to follow exactly how it is we're supporting and proving and expounding on our thesis. And we know that this would be body paragraph 3 because it is the third point of supporting evidence in the thesis. And once again, as we talked about earlier, depending on page length, word count requirements, you might have to write multiple body paragraphs for each supporting point, but this is operating on just a 5-paragraph essay scale.
Mm.
Okay, so now that we've talked about essay structure a little bit, we're going to talk about how do we develop strong topic sentences. So how do we state our main idea clearly so that the reader understands what it is we're claiming and how that supports our thesis. So topic sentences, or a topic sentence, clearly states the main idea of the paragraph and directly supports the thesis. So we are going to start with a few topic sentence examples. So we're going to start with a pretty weak example. So if someone were to begin a paragraph with, college has many challenges. While that's a true statement, it's very vague. We don't know what specific challenges are being referred to and what is to be done about that. So that's a statement, but there's really not much of a argumentative direction here with this topic sentence. So let's try a better example. So a better example would be time management is one of the most significant challenges facing adult college students. Okay, this example is better. It specifies that this paragraph is focusing on time management as a challenge that's facing specifically adult college students. So this is better, but I think we could enhance it that much more. An even stronger example would be effective time management is a critical factor influencing the academic success of adult learners. Here we have a really particular claim that will be proven throughout the paragraph. So it's not just any time management, it's effective time management. And
Mm.
it's a critical factor influencing the academic success of adult learners. So yes, it's a challenge, it's a discipline to manage our time well, but it's also a critical factor that influences the academic success of adult learners.
Okay, so with the stronger um, topic sentence, it's answering a question of how. Um, like you're adding more um, you mentioned effective adjective. There's the word critical. So being more specific is saying what type of in what type of factor is influencing or what type of time management we're talking about, right?
Yes, and So you bring up a few really important points. So it's not just about adding more words. So that's not our ultimate goal because there can be really effective, concise topic sentences. This is more about being specific so that the writer knows the direction that the paragraph is taking and what he or she is proving in that body paragraph. So the writer could write a very effective body paragraph with this second topic sentence
Hmm.
example. The third example is just that much more specific of um the type of time management that it's a critical factor influencing success, but similarly it's also a challenge. And so this paragraph could explore the challenges of time management. Um So you raise a really great point. So it's not just about adding more, it's really just about being specific. And then of course for these examples we don't have a thesis statement, but it would be time management would absolutely be a factor, a piece of
Hmm.
supporting evidence that is being expounded on in this particular body paragraph.
Okay. Okay. The type. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You raised excellent points. Okay, so let's take a moment to do a brief activity looking at strong versus weak topic sentences. So, which topic sentence better supports the thesis statement? And once again, we're returning to that first thesis example. Higher education is a worthwhile investment because earning a college degree increases career opportunities, improves critical thinking skills, and promotes long-term financial stability. So, which topic sentence better supports the thesis statement? Example one, higher education increases access to higher paying careers. Example number two, college students often make new friends. So, which topic sentence better supports the thesis statement?
I think example one,
Yes, yes. And why would that be?
because it stays with the content of your thesis. If you used example two, we're talking about a total different topic with new
Yes,
friends. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Somewhat very indirectly related because it's talking about college students, but not at all focused on the heart of the argument here in terms
Mhm.
of the benefits of these specific benefits of earning a college degree. Because, well, and the interesting thing is too, is that making friends is
Mhm.
one benefit sometimes, it's not a guarantee of going to college, and sometimes people do cite that as one benefit of higher education. But we want to be really careful because just because this is related to the topic doesn't mean it should be included in our specific paper because we've already set out and made it clear to the reader what it is we're arguing, how we're going to argue, and so this is not directly related to the thesis statement. Now,
Mhm.
perhaps we could, if the writer wanted to focus on the value of lifelong friendships formed in the college setting, that could be one of the pieces of supporting evidence. But in its current state, this thesis statement does not cover that, and therefore this topic sentence should not cover that either because it's
Mhm.
not directly related or directly supporting the thesis. Very good. Okay, so we've covered basic paper structure. We talked about it briefly earlier, but I just like to go over with students that we always want to begin our papers with an introduction, an introductory paragraph, which provides an overview of the topic that we've selected to write on. And the introduction generally is going to conclude with our thesis statement. So the last sentence of the introduction ideally should be our thesis statement. And then that launches us into the body paragraphs. So again, depending on the page count or word count, that will help determine, okay, how many body paragraphs realistically do we need? And then at the very end of the paper, before the works cited or references page, we'll have our conclusion, which wraps up the paper in a satisfying way, examining and really answering the so what significance of the topic and the argument. So if we look at a full essay flow, we can look at how generally it's going to follow this structure. Again, this example is based on a 5-paragraph essay. Depending on what your assignment is, you may have 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 body paragraphs. It all just depends on the length of your assignment. But for the sake of simplicity, uh, this is the example structure that we're looking at. So our introduction introduces the topic and ends with the thesis. Our body paragraph 1 supports idea number 1 from the thesis. Our second body paragraph supports idea number 2 from the thesis. And body paragraph 3 supports idea number 3 from the thesis. And again, as we've been talking about, you might have, depending on if you're writing a longer paper, you could write several body paragraphs just on idea number 1. You could write multiple body paragraphs just supporting idea number 2. That will just take a little bit more intentionality when it comes to drafting your topic sentences, because you're going to need to be intentional about, okay, if I'm breaking down one supporting piece of evidence, one supporting point into multiple body paragraphs, I want to be really intentional about how I'm doing that, how I'm ordering that, and what makes the most sense in light of the logical flow and progression of my paper. And then, of course, at the very end, we have our conclusion, which reinforces the thesis and explains the significance of the argument. And again, we just covered this, but depending on the length requirement of the paper, you may develop each supporting idea in multiple body paragraphs. Okay, I find this visual particularly helpful when we think about our introduction. So our introduction paragraph is similar to an upside down triangle. And that's because we're taking our reader from the outside world and the reader's previous understandings of this topic, our reader's context, into the specifics of our argument in our paper. And so we really want to be intentional with introducing the topic in a way that previews and foreshadows our argument. So I think sometimes people feel like the introduction is just something to kind of push through and get through to then get to the substance of the paper. But the introduction is a really neat opportunity to preview and lay the foundation for what does my reader need to know about this topic in order to effectively understand my argument. So if you're writing about a particularly complex political issue or theological topic, we really want to take time to unpack the nuance of what that topic is, how different people may define terms differently. That's a really key component of really any essay writing in any academic discipline, is making sure that our terms are defined and that it's really clear how we're using particular terms. Um, so yes, so the introduction is there to introduce the topic. Generally, it's going to begin with some sort of hook or attention grabber. And again, this doesn't need to be sensational or flashy. It's really just a way of thoughtfully inviting the reader to engage with this topic. So we don't want to just, you know, it's a little cliche, but we don't want to just say, from the dawn of time, people have been searching for love. Is that true? Yes. Is that particularly original? Perhaps not. So we want to be thinking through, okay, if I'm writing a paper on love, maybe specifically agape love in the Bible, how can I introduce that to my reader in a meaningful, engaging way? So after we include our hook, we want to include background information and context. So we were just talking about this briefly a moment ago. Are there any terms that need to be defined? Are there any significant historical events or context that should be at least just briefly mentioned? Now, I will say, depending on your academic discipline, depending on your course, following your introduction, you may have another paragraph of historical or background information before jumping into the actual content of your argument. So that will all just depend on the course that you're writing for, the academic discipline that you're in, but some students will choose to have an introduction and then another background paragraph and then jump into the content of their argument. So that's helpful to know that that is an option available to you, depending on the complexity of the topic that you're talking about, writing about. And then, of course, in our introduction, we want to transition to our argument well. We don't want to just drop our thesis in there and just assume that the reader understands what to make of our argument or how we got there. So, whether that's noting the controversy surrounding the topic, maybe varying interpretations, or um, how and why this is a particularly charged issue, or perhaps it's not a charged issue and it's not a topic that is talked about enough. And maybe you could note that perhaps it is um, a topic that's often brushed aside or not really considered. And so that could also be an angle that you use to talk about the importance of addressing this topic. And then finally, we generally will end our introduction paragraphs with our thesis because that kind of, if we're going back to the triangle, it kind of funnels down into the specifics of what it is we're saying and how we're going to say it. So that is the introduction paragraph overview. Any questions about the introduction?
Depending on our paper or or research, I'm thinking of research.
Mhm.
Um, the more, how can I say, the length of your writing will probably, if it's like a super long, final paper, you might want to use every single the hook, the background information, transition to argument and thesis, everything in it. If it was like a, let's see, really tight 7 to 10. I mean, it sounds long, but you would have to be very concise in this introductory paper, right? I'm trying to
Sure. So
think
are you
about
saying like 7 to 10 page paper or 7 to 10 sentences
page.
per pages? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Depending on the level. I mean, really, actually, in no matter the length constraints, we really always want to be intentional with
Mhm.
the sentences that we're using. But yes, when we're writing about a particularly complex topic and we have a limited amount of space to do so, we do want to be very intentional with, okay, how am I using each and every sentence to effectively convey and communicate my argument? So, and the introduction is a big part of that because it's laying the foundation. It's not just, okay, I'm writing on this today and here's my argument. Really, we want to provide so much more for our reader to really understand what is this topic? Why is this topic important? Why is this topic important today?
Mhm.
Um, all of those, all of those elements are whether or not they make it into the final draft of the paper, there's still questions that we want to be wrestling with as the writer that were at least that we're consciously thinking through as we're drafting and putting together our papers.
Okay, so I guess the key is intentional. I
Yeah.
think I need to keep asking myself as I write through hook, background, information, context, transition to argument, um, to be very concise, I think. Yeah, or elaborate, depending on the length of
Mhm.
the paper. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's yeah, intentionality, concision, but then also, as you said, elaboration, because we want to be detailed and exact and specific in what it is we're writing. And so sometimes that will necessitate a level of depth that, especially writing at the graduate level, um, that type of writing requires it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so following the introduction, we have our series of body paragraphs. And the purpose of each and every body paragraph is to support and build up the thesis with explanation, research, and examples. And so this is going to be a general structure that we'll follow for our body paragraphs. We present our topic sentence, our main idea, and then we want to elaborate on that main idea. Here's where that elaboration comes in. And then we provide evidence and examples of the point that we're proving. So this is where we incorporate outside research, statistics, expert opinions, and then we want to explain how that evidence, how those examples support and connect to our main idea. And then we don't want to just leave our reader hanging. We want to, of course, end with a concluding sentence that wraps up our paragraph well in a satisfactory way. So we have our topic sentence, we elaborate, we provide evidence and examples, explanation, and a concluding sentence. And when we include our outside evidence, we want to make sure that we are introducing the source. So we might say, author Jane Smith writes, or author Jane Smith asserts. We want to provide an on-ramp for our readers to understand what this source is, why it's credible. If you're writing um, a paper, you're going or writing a paper on something with biology or physiology, it's going to be helpful to quote doctors and experts and specialists. And so we want to provide that. Oh, thanks so much, Tara. Thanks for joining. And then okay, so we introduce our source, and then we also always want to cite our source according to the academic conventions of the particular citation style that's been assigned to us, whether that's MLA or APA or Turabian or Chicago. We want to make it clear that we are citing our source properly and giving credit where credit's due. Following that citation, then we have the explanation for those pieces of evidence. And sometimes, depending on the paragraph, you might repeat this. So we might have evidence, explanation, and then evidence and explanation before the concluding sentence, depending on how many pieces of support you include in a topic sentence. So you might have a fact or a statistic followed by a quote from an expert. But we always want to make sure that we're introducing, citing, and explaining before moving on to our next piece of evidence.
Mm. So that's something I'm curious about. The topic sentence you give your thought from your thesis, and then this elaborate on main idea, provide evidence. I think I've actually put the
Mm.
evidence first before I elaborated on it. Is that not good or?
No, that's also perfectly fine. The the cool thing about paragraphs is as much as there is a general format we want to follow, ultimately the writer gets to make the final decision of,
Mm,
okay, this content is best explained in this way. And so this is how. So, of course, there are general principles that we're always going to follow. Of course, we're always going to be citing our sources. We always want to
mm,
be having a unifying main idea. But if we say, okay, I have this great piece of evidence that after
mm.
the topic sentence, I want to jump right into, that is perfectly fine. And so you have
Okay.
the liberty and freedom to do that. And it's interesting because yes, these second 2 points are
Mhm.
first very interrelated
Okay.
and they are also interchangeable. So
Okay.
as long as you are over the course of your body paragraph stating a clear idea,
Mhm.
supporting it, citing, explaining,
Mhm.
that's really the heartbeat of your body paragraph. So I'm so glad you
Okay.
brought that up because there is a lot of flexibility in this.
Okay. So I have flexibility because, like, I'll give a concise example. You'll quote something out of the commentary,
Hmm.
and it goes with your topic sentence, but you want to take something and then make relationships, about
Hmm.
that
Yes,
on your point. Okay. Great.
absolutely. Yes. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Okay, so that is an overview of body paragraphs. And then following the series of body paragraphs in the essay, we come to our conclusion. And the conclusion can be understood as structurally kind of like a right side up triangle, where we're taking our reader from the specifics of our argument, the specifics of our paper, and expanding back out into the real world of, okay, now that the reader has read my paper, what do I want the reader to do with this information? So we're wrapping up the paper in a satisfying way. We're synthesizing our thesis. We don't want to just cut and paste, but we want to restate our argument in a meaningful, clear way. And we want to really explain, okay, how do we answer the so what question? And one way to do that is to provide practical implications. So what does this argument mean for uh, a particular people? So depending on your audience for the paper, maybe you're writing to US citizens, maybe you're writing to global Christians, maybe you're writing about um, young people living in a technological digital age. Depending on what audience you're writing to, there's going to be different implications to that argument. And then also applications of is there a call to action? Should people be taking a stance for or against something? Should people be learning more about a topic? Should they, there's so many different ways in which you can kind of leave your reader, but you want to leave them with something thought-provoking. Thought-provoking to think about and consider based on the argument that you've presented in your paper. It's also really important to note here that we don't want to be presenting brand new information in our conclusion. So we have already established all of our main points, our research. Here is where we get to really dive into, okay, what does this all mean? What does this mean for the reader, for society, for the world, for believers? Again, depending on your audience, you can approach that differently.
So when you bring in those implications, um, is that because it's in your conclusion, should you have hints of that in your introduction?
Mm, that's a great question. You absolutely can. You don't have to, though. But
Mm-hmm.
it should be really clear, of course, depending on your thesis, it's clear the direction, the stance that you're taking,
Okay.
but it's okay if maybe the particular, that a lot of times it takes the entirety of the paper for your
Oh,
conclusion or your call to action or your just application of your argument to kind of fully make sense and to land in a way that's most meaningful. So a lot of times writers will kind of wait for that because it can be such a profound, it can have like a greater impact because something else that actually we didn't talk about earlier, typically a writer will arrange their points of argument in terms of like not least convincing, but like lesser lesser to greatest. And so you lead
okay.
with, and I don't even want to say like your weakest point, but in a sense, maybe your weakest point, and then you build up over the course of your body paragraphs to the most compelling of your
Mm,
arguments, which
okay.
then is going to be placed right before your conclusion. And so that presents you with a really great opportunity to conclude in such a way that is really meaningful and impactful and thought-provoking. It's kind of like a mic drop moment where it's
Right.
just, oh wow, I had never thought of it in that way, and
Mm,
that is very moving or really thought-provoking. And so that's kind of the
mm,
opportunity that
mm.
the conclusion paragraph presents the writer.
Right. Okay. So whether it's apologetics or
Hmm.
that um if you pulling across or presenting a case
Hmm.
in support of that thesis, then that really makes sense from the lightest to the
Yes.
heaviest.
Hmm.
Boom type of
Yep,
deal. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've seen that like in journals.
Hmm.
People will do that. Yeah,
Yes.
and then they bring their heaviest. Okay, this is it. You know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Excellent. Yes. So as we continue working through how do we build effective paragraphs, we're going to talk a little bit more about how do we incorporate and implement supporting evidence. So, supporting evidence provides proof for your claim, your main idea in that paragraph, and it answers the questions of how and why. So someone might read your claim and go, okay, how does earning a college degree increase critical thinking skills? Like,
Mm,
that's a nice dream, but how does that actually happen practically? And how can we prove that? And so here is where we're going to pull from a variety of academic support. So again, this is going to look a little differently depending on our academic discipline, depending on our areas
mhm.
of specialty. But we're generally going to be using research findings, statistics, expert opinions. We might come up with a few generalized examples to illustrate our points. And then, of course, there's also commentaries, Bible dictionaries, all of these sources that are available to us. So we want to make sure that we are supporting our main idea with credible evidence.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm.
Yes. And so when we're incorporating our supporting evidence, our supporting sentences, it can be helpful to have a little bit of a word bank of some sentence
Mm,
starters.
mm,
So, for example, furthermore, researchers found that one reason for this is now, of course, this is absolutely a non-exhaustive list.
mm,
There are so many myriad ways of
mhm,
of starting sentences. But for students who are perhaps new to academic writing or who have been away from academic writing for a series of years, it can be really helpful to have tangible examples of, okay, how do I go about doing this practically? So
mm,
after presenting our topic sentence, when we are elaborating on that or presenting our evidence, here's some really nice ways of implementing that.
mm,
We also want to remember to not just state our research. We don't want to just include the facts and jump to the next paragraph. We want
mm,
to make sure that we're explaining it thoroughly. So I love the phrase connect the dots. I think it provides such a nice visual and reminder of, okay, I can't just assume that this statistic or this expert opinion is just going to speak for itself. I know
mm,
what I think of it. I know how it supports my evidence, but I want to make it really crystal clear to the reader of, okay, how am I, as the writer, using this evidence to support my main idea? So evidence alone is not enough. We want to explain its significance and connect the dots for our reader. So we want to make it really clear, okay, this scripture verse is, the context is this is what it means, this is how it supports the main idea.
mm.
So we want to make that explanation really clear.
Yeah.
So now after we've presented our main idea, presented our evidence and our explanations, we come to the end of our body paragraphs. And we want to make sure that we're ending those well, that we're ending it with purpose. And this can be really tricky. I'll say for me that this can be a really challenging part of my writing as well, because I can often feel like I've said what I wanted to say. I incorporated my research and I'm good. But we really want to make sure that we are reinforcing our main idea. So it's
Mm,
really clear to the reader, okay, I've stated my main idea, I've built up my argument, I've presented evidence, I've explained that evidence, but now the end of the paragraph is the opportunity to show why it matters, show
mm,
how it all connects. I kind of like the visual of putting a bow on it. So when you
mm,
finish wrapping a gift, what's one way to make it just look stunning? Putting a bow on it. And so
mm,
that is what the concluding sentences does for our paragraphs. And of
mm,
course, we want to maintain academic tone. So, returning back to the time management example, if we're writing a paragraph on time management, we might conclude with, therefore, strong time management skills are essential for achieving academic success in higher education. So, really, we've reinforced our main idea here and concluded well and made it really clear what it is we've hopefully proven over the course of that body paragraph.
mm. Okay, so, mm, okay, yeah. Strong time management skills. Very, very concise and very descriptive.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, it's really clear that it's returning to the claim of the paragraph that strong time management skills are essential for achieving academic success in higher education. And so the rest of the paragraph has proven that, and then this is just driving the point home of, okay, therefore, because of all of this evidence, it's clear that strong time management skills are essential for achieving academic success in higher education.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, because if you didn't play strong there, it doesn't have the same real punch. Therefore,
Mm,
time management skills, no, it has to be therefore strong time management skills are essential.
yes.
Um,
And depending on the writer, I mean, we don't necessarily need this adjective here,
mhm,
but it does help provide context for what type of time management skills. So, especially in the context of this paper, if we're writing about adult online learners who
mhm,
more often than not have, might be caretakers of
mhm,
children or aging parents. They might have full-time jobs, ministry commitments, all of these things. They really need not that they can just generally manage their time, but that they
mhm.
have really strong time management skills.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Context. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then a few possible sentence starters for concluding sentences. Therefore, as a result, for these reasons, overall. Again,
Mhm,
this is a non-exhaustive list. There are so many other ways that you can begin a concluding sentence, but these are some really nice transitions to try as you're crafting your concluding sentences.
mm, yeah.
So, what to avoid in these concluding sentences? We want to avoid adding new ideas, repeating our topic sentence word for word, and ending abruptly. So, we don't want to just end the paragraph. Okay, I've done my work. We want to make it really clear that we're thoughtfully transitioning from this point to the next point.
The next point. Okay. Okay. Mm.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so for the sake of time, we'll actually jump over this activity,
Okay.
but I wanted to give students an opportunity to put these ideas into practice. And so maybe after the workshop, if you'd like to, or if you're watching this recording later, feel free to hit pause and apply the things that you've learned and practice writing and constructing a paragraph. And you can do that by having your topic sentence, which is started above. So one benefit of online learning is, and then you can fill in the rest of that topic sentence. And
Mhm.
then you'll include a sentence of support and a sentence of explanation. And then finally, a concluding sentence for that paragraph. So this is just an opportunity to apply and incorporate what it is we've talked about throughout this workshop.
Okay.
And then one other helpful acronym, I know we've talked about a few different ways of configuring topic sentences, or excuse me, not topic sentences, body paragraphs.
Mhm.
And then we talked about earlier the flexibility that's available to us when it comes to developing topic sentences. And so this is a little bit of an even more concise way of thinking about developing a body paragraph, and it's with the acronym PEAS. So I thought it was really fitting because we've been talking about plants and vegetation
Uh-huh.
to think through, okay, so in the first sentence, we want to establish our main point, our main claim. This would be the topic sentence. So we start with our point, and then we go into our evidence. So we explain, or excuse me, we state the evidence that supports our main idea. So we incorporate research, credibility, logical reasoning, support for our main point. So evidence that shows that main point. And then we go into our analysis and our explanation of what does that evidence mean and how does it support our main point?
Mhm.
And then finally, our concluding sentence we can think of as so what? What's the so what significance of this main point, this paragraph as a whole? What does it prove, especially in light of the paper as a whole?
Mm,
So I love
okay.
the simplicity of the P's acronym: point, evidence, analysis, and so what.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So to review, we talked about introductions and conclusions, but we really focused our time on body paragraphs. And so when we write body paragraphs, we begin with our topic sentence, which is the main idea. We include support for that main idea with evidence, research, credibility, and then we include an explanation of why it matters. How does this connect to our main idea? How does this support our argument? How does this relate to what it is we are setting out to prove in the paper? And then finally, we conclude our paragraph by explaining the significance of this one brick, this one building block in light of the building as a whole. So how does this, going back to the house
Mm,
analogy from earlier, how does this one brick support and provide stability to the whole of the argument?
mm, mm. Right. Smart build document. Yes. Okay. Okay. And your hours are from what time?
Yes, so that's a great question. So typically we have morning through evening appointments on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And then we typically have appointments available in the morning and early afternoon on Fridays. So Fridays, we do not have evening appointments, but Monday through Thursday, we typically have appointments available from 9 or 10 a.m. until 7 p.m., typically.
Okay. And how far in advance is it? Do we need to make the appointment?
Great question. So depending on the time of the subterm, so of course, like the time that we're in right now, we're a little bit more fully booked in advance because students have final papers and
Right.
major projects that they're working on. So sometimes you can find an appointment for the next day or the following day, or even that same day. But then there's also times where we might be fully booked for the next few days. So
Right. Okay.
you can check our schedule, and then you can always send me an email if you're not seeing any appointments available.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, great. Okay.
Okay,
I'm coming to
excellent.
visit the campus, so
Oh,
I
that's
was curious.
wonderful. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yes. I
Yeah.
will say the hours I just provided are for our online Ally Center. There
Okay.
is also an in-person Ally Center for the on-campus undergraduate
Okay.
students. And so that Ally Center actually has slightly different hours. So
Okay.
I can pull up our web page and we can take a look at that briefly. So here is so the in-person Ally Center is 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Oh, okay.
But then the online hours are a little bit different.
Okay. Okay. No,
And
I
you
just
can
wanted to drop by. So,
Yes, oh, that'd
okay.
be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, because graduation is coming up and
Yes.
yeah, I'll be there. So,
Excellent. Well, congratulations. Well, thank you again for joining, and please
Okay.
reach out if there's anything else that we can do.
Thank you. This is very helpful. So I
Excellent.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Yes, of
Helga.
course. Absolutely. Have a
Okay.
blessed rest of your night.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.